Good morning everyone. Basa muna tayo ng ating history book, History of the Filipino People by Agoncillo and Guerrero. Today is 22 March 2023, History of the Filipino People, Part 6, the Third Republic. Topic number 27, Profile of the Economy. Nandito tayo sa paragraph, The Growth of Labor Unions. Basa. The growth of labor unions. The growth of labor unions in the Philippines is essentially an offshoot of the American occupation. Labor unions were unknown during the Spanish period, for aside from the limited industrial and commercial opportunities, the colonial government did not encourage any movement that would tend to undermine the Spanish view of peace and order. On February 2, 1902, however, mainly owing to the American influence and to the free access of the Filipinos to books and periodicals carrying items about labor movements in the United States and elsewhere, a group of radical and progressive Filipinos led by Isabela de los Reyes, Dominador Gomez, Aurelio Tolentino, Hermenegildo Cruz, Lopique Santos, and others founded the first labor union in the Philippines, the Union Obrera Democrática de Filipinas, Democratic Labor Union of the Philippines. With La Redención del Obrero as its official organ, the union voiced the social demands and nationalistic feelings of the workers. For the labor union of the period were the projection of the nationalistic era of the revolution. Writers who found in literature an ideal medium for communicating their nationalistic and socialistic tendencies wrote essays, poems, and novels depicting the social conditions, the aspirations of the masses, and what they believed to be the ideal state. Most influential of these works, however, was Lopique Santos, Banaag, at Sikat. Avidly read by the masses and the intellectuals, the book in no small measure influenced the workers in fighting for economic, social, and political reforms. As a result, more and more labor unions sprouted. Strikes were resorted to by the laborers, particularly those engaged in cigar and cigarette manufacture, to the discomfiture of the capitalists who had been accustomed to pushing the workers around. The labor leaders on May 1, 1913 presented a united front when they held the first Labor Congress on the occasion of the celebration of the first Labor Day in the Philippines. In the 1920s, communist and socialist influence seeped through some labor unions, particularly those of Manila and Central Luzon. Confronted with new and radical techniques, the conservative leaders like Antonio de Padilla and Roberto S. Cristobal opposed the communist-inspired tactics of Crisanto Evangelista, Jacinto Manahan, Antonio de Ora, Arturo Soriano, and others, and seceded from the collective labor movement. They founded their own, the National Federation of Labor and the Confederated Workers Alliance. When in 1939, Secretary of Labor Jose Avellino formed the National Commission on Labor, both the communist and conservative factions of labor were represented. The conflict between the two labor camps continued after the outbreak of the war, when all labor unions were declared illegal by the Japanese conquerors. After the war, the growth of labor was phenomenal. The labor movement became dynamic, particularly because of the war experiences of the masses and of the influence of the American soldiers who were members of powerful labor unions in the United States. Guys, magbasa rin kayo ng inyong history book para masabayan nyo ako dito. Kapwa ko Filipino, History Book of the Filipino People to, by Agoncillo and Guerrero. Okay, continue na tayo. Of the numerous labor unions that sprung up immediately after the war, the most popular and powerful was the Committee, later changed to Congress of Labor Organization CLO, founded and dominated by progressive labor leaders Laborers in all sectors of the economy were organized, and strikes were used frequently to boost wages. At first headed by Cipriano Cid, a lawyer and former staff member of the Manila Daily Bulletin, the union became aggressive under the leadership of Amado V. Hernandez, former councilor of Manila, former editor of the Daily Mabuhay, and an eminent writer and poet in Tagalog. With the labor front in turmoil owing to the uncompromising stand of the CLO, and with Central Luzon up in arms against the government, Carina's administration taking advantage of the suspension of the writ of habeas corpus, bore down on militant labor unions, particularly the CLO, and invited its leader to Camp Murphy for investigation. Hernandez was detained for 6 months before charges were prepared against him. He was charged with the crime of rebellion, complex with murder and arson, and sentenced to life imprisonment. Upon appeal to the Supreme Court, Hernandez was acquitted. Today, 1967, in terms of number and bargaining strength, Philippine labor unions seem formidable. Up to the end of 1966, there were no less than 2,000 unions scattered all over the country with a strength of some 750,000 members distributed in all industries. Labor gains. Wait lang isa. Through united action, labor made significant nag-text si Agnes. Labor gains. Through united action, labor made significant gains, among the first being the creation of the Bureau of Labor and latter of the Department of Labor, and the enactment of legislation providing for the prosecution of usurers. The protection of domestic help, the payment of compensation to workers injured in line of duty, and the protection of women and children working in factories. A special tribunal, the Court of Industrial Relations, has been established to facilitate the settlement of disputes between labor and management and to help in the effective implementation of laws governing the relationship between capital and labor, such as the 8-hour labor law, the Social Security Act, and others. The most significant labor legislation safeguarding the rights of labor is Republic Act No. 875, popularly known as the Magna Carta of Labor. Republic Act No. 875 pala yun. Popularly known as the Magna Carta of Labor. This law encourages laborers freely to form unions and recognizes the right of labor to bargain collectively and to declare strikes. There are, however, safeguards against possible abuse of power by the labor unions. Under the Magna Carta of Labor, a union could be guilty of unfair labor practices if it intimidates or prevents laborers from joining unions of their choice, or if the union refuses to bargain collectively despite the fact that it represents the majority of the workers, or if it demands from employers payment to laborers for work not done. The Social Security Act of 1954 is another milestone in the history of Philippine labor. Under the Act, a Social Security Fund is set up to be administered by the Social Security Commission. The fund consists of contributions from employers and laborers. 2.5% of the salaries to be contributed by the laborers, and 3.5% by the employers. From these accumulated funds are taken the allowances for the sick and the unemployed members of the Social Security system, and the retirement and disability benefits accruing to the laborers. Matagal na pala tong SSS, guys. 1913 pa, 1954 pa lang. Two other important laws safeguard the health and economic well-being of the laborers. The termination pay law provides that neither employer nor employee, in cases where there is no contract regarding definite period of employment and agricultural, industrial, or commercial establishment shall terminate the service without due notice at least 30 days prior to its termination. The Blue Sunday Law gives a semblance of leisure to the laborers, for it prohibits work on Sunday, Holy Thursday, Good Friday, Christmas Day, and New Year's Day. The minimum wage law sets the floor or minimum wage of 120 pesos a month. Grabe, kamura. Or not less than 4 pesos a day in urban areas and 2 pesos daily in agricultural areas. The anti-scab law, passed in 1963, aims at protecting the workers' rights to strike and to picket, while another law passed in 1965 amended the minimum wage law by raising the minimum wage to 6 pesos a day. Owing to the rapid increase of population, particularly in the urban districts where provincial workers flock, and to the minimal industrialization, which consists mainly of packaging houses, the problem of unemployment is rather serious. At the end of 1958, about 9% or 10% of the total labor force of 8.5 million was unemployed. Equally serious is the low income of the Philippine wage earners. In 1957, when the gross national income was 8,799 million pesos, only 41.5% of the amount represented wages and salaries of workers and employers. This index is low compared with those of other countries, 49.1% for Japan and 58.7% for Australia. The same condition exists today, 1969, but the unemployed labor force has increased dangerously. Focus na itong bad features of Philippine labor, guys. Sa March 23 na natin yun. Bye everyone. God bless.